Rahul Gandhi appeals his defamation conviction. Opposition parties say their leader's sentencing is the latest evidence of the Modi government's strong-arm tactics. But BJP leaders say the case reflects his party's arrogance and that they are only following the law. I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is Rahul Gandhi. Indian opposition leader Rahul Gandhi has filed an appeal to overturn a judgment that sentenced him to 2 years in prison and forced his expulsion from parliament. During an election rally back in 2019, Gandhi asked why all thieves have Modi as their surname. He then listed fugitive diamond tycoon Nirav Modi, disgraced Indian Premier League chief Lalit Modi, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In response, BJP party member Purnesh Modi filed a defamation case, which the court finally ruled on last month. The comments were deemed insulting to all people with the surname Modi. Rahul Gandhi was convicted of defamation and sentenced to 2 years in prison. He has appealed that decision and is now out on bail, scheduled to be back in court next week.
Today was the hearing of Rahul Gandhi's bail application, stay on sentencing and conviction stay application. The court has accepted the bail application and granted bail with an amount of 15,000 rupees. They have put a stay on the sentencing. The conviction application for his stay has been postponed to 13th of April. The hearing will be held on 13th of April, and Rahul Gandhi has been allowed to skip it, which means it will work even if he does not appear.
So what's at stake here? Well, India's national elections are scheduled for next year. Rahul Gandhi will not be able to stand unless his conviction is suspended or overturned. Opposition leaders accuse the governing BJP of pursuing a political vendetta. The BJP, of course, denies that and says a fair judicial process was followed. A day after he was convicted, Gandhi lost his seat in parliament due to a law that stipulates any politician convicted of a crime and sentenced to 2 or more years in prison is automatically disqualified. This caused Congress party members to hold protests in several states, and leaders of several other opposition parties joined in.
That Shri Rahul Gandhi has been speaking out fearlessly inside and outside Parliament. He has spoken on social issues, on economic issues, on political issues, without any fear or inhibition, frankly and candidly through you to India. Clearly, he is paying a price for it. This government is rattled because he speaks with facts, figures on demonetization, be it on a supposed clean chit to China, be it on GST. He is consistently aggressive and open in his questioning.
So is there true merit to this defamation case, or is it being used as a political tool? Joining me now to debate that are, from Delhi, senior BJP leader Sudhanshu Mittal. From Mumbai is Sanjay Jha. He's former national spokesperson for the Indian National Congress Party. And also in Delhi is Sanjay Hegde. He is a senior advocate at the Indian Supreme Court. Thank you all so much for being with us. Sudhanshu, I'll start with you because something that wasn't actually explained in our introduction and could be fundamental to this case, especially for an outsider's understanding, is the Indian context for Gandhi's comments. The name Modi is common among so-called OBCs or other backwards classes, less educated castes, so considered. So please explain the sensitivity that actually goes with that and why you think it's not just about insulting 3 people.
OBC is not just educationally backward, it is socially backward as well. So for Mr. Rahul Gandhi to make a derogatory, abusive and irresponsible statement saying that how come all thieves are Modis is completely unacceptable to this community. And agreed by this remark, which is which is so insulting and so derogatory. One of them chose to approach the court with a petition of defamation, which is a statute under the Indian Penal Code. It's section 499, section 500 under the Indian Penal Code. And so the judge tried Mr. Rahul Gandhi for this offense. Mr. Gandhi was given an opportunity of apologizing or expressing regrets, which he chose not to. So he made a choice. He made a choice of getting punished for an offense which he did commit. In fact, if you look at the entire narrative around this case, nobody has questioned whether he was derogatory or not, or whether he was defamatory or not. All they say is, look, he was, but the quantum of punishment. Now,
okay, but I mean, is
it
derogatory? Could it also be tone deaf, but not necessarily criminal?
Defamation has two sides. One is a civil defamation, one is a criminal defamation. Now, if the petition which has been filed by Mr. Purnesh Modi is a criminal defamation, so he'll be tried under the Criminal Act. This is a private member's complaint. This is not state versus Mr. Rahul Gandhi. The government has nothing to do with it. A private individual who felt aggrieved with the statement made by Mr. Rahul Gandhi has approached the court as a private member complaint, and he's got him convicted. So it's an individual who has been defamed by a derogatory statement who has gone to the court, and the court has rightly given a punishment to Mr. Rahul Gandhi.
Okay.
So it is criminal by nature of the complaint.
Okay. So now it's criminal defamation. It's 2 years in prison. And that is the minimum, actually, for disqualification. And what a coincidence. I mean, that's the sentence he got. So Sanjay Jha, you say, actually, you've argued this law dates way back to British law of 1860, and no individual has actually ever been sentenced with this kind of penalty. So is your conclusion that someone had to do their research to bring these charges and demand this kind of sentence for a criminal defamation case?
Well, you know, the Bharatiya Janata Party is very inspired by the British. They are actually, if you can see, very passionately executing the law as they interpret that. And they also politically follow the policy of the British of divide and rule in India. But let me answer your question. First and foremost, I think my co-panelist has been rather economical with the truth. The government releases the list of people who come under the OBC list. The central government of India does not have the Modi as a community. It's a surname. It doesn't make it a community. In India, there are Muslims who are called Modis. There are Parsis who are called Modis. There are other commercial castes called Baniyas, which are called Modis. And there are maybe even others as well. So to attribute it as an insult to a community is clearly a politically driven agenda. And the gentleman who's actually filed the case happens to be an MLA, former MLA of the party that my co-panelist represents. We are very confident that this case will be, as it will face a higher degree of judicial scrutiny in the higher courts, it will probably be quashed. But I don't want to preempt that. The fundamental point, however, doesn't change, which is that Mr. Gandhi questioned the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, on his very close proximity to a very prominent Indian businessman called Adani.
I do want to get to that. I mean, there's another factor involved with that, as you were about to explain. But before we go too far, I just need to ask you, Sanjay Jha, why didn't Rahul Gandhi just apologize? Could all of this have been avoided if he just had said, sorry if I offended somebody outside the 3 people I was making this comment about?
Well, if I tell you right now, Andrea, that I'm very agitated because you're wearing a color orange in your dress, you need to apologize to me, will you? Or should you? I mean, there are cases and all kinds of tools of harassment that people indulge in. He said nothing wrong. He was actually making a statement where he talked about Lalit Modi, who in fact is again deemed to be very close to the current government, who absconded to London and has been missing in action. And the government seems to be in no hurry to get him back. There were serious charges against him of financial embezzlement. There is another gentleman called Nirav Modi.
Right, we did explain this. We mentioned this at the beginning. Yes, we described the 3 that he was talking about. Right.
Yeah,
So,
and he
okay,
linked them to the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi. So I don't
right.
think Rahul Gandhi said anything wrong at all.
Okay, so he shouldn't have to apologize according to your assessment. But let me get Sanjay Hegde into this conversation. I just need to ask you what you make of how this law is being applied here.
Well, Mr. Mittal is right that there is a provision which provides for 2 years of imprisonment. There's another provision under the election law which says that if you get sentenced for 2 years, then you get disqualified. This provision for criminal defamation has rarely been used to the full extent that 2 years of sentence has been awarded to anyone. Now, for a comment which could be seen as innocuous, it could be bad taste, or even if it was defamatory, a magistrate in another province altogether awarding a full 2-year sentence does seem not only excessive, but seems so entirely coincidental that people are beginning to ask questions. Was the magistrate aware that the consequence of a 2-year sentence would be the disqualification of a prominent opposition leader? Coincidentally, it is also said that the magistrate got promoted very soon thereafter. So those who want to draw their conclusions or those who want to see a conspiracy might well choose to do so. Yes, there is an appellate court to set things right. But in the meanwhile, what has happened is that for a bit of political rhetoric, one of the big leaders of the opposition has been disqualified from parliament, and that too was a coincidence that it was very soon after he questioned the government's dealings with a prominent businessman.
Again, Gautam Adani. But then let me ask you, Sanjay Hegde, if you think then, according to the merits, this can hold up on appeal.
I have very grave doubts that it would be sustained in an appeal. But I don't know which level of the appellate process that overturning will happen. Right now, we are still in the city of Surat, where a magistrate has sentenced him. The matter has gone before the sessions judge. And if there is no stay on the conviction, I fully expect the matter to travel up the levels to the High Court in the state of Gujarat and then to the Supreme Court of India.
Okay. Sudhanshu Mittal, I have to ask, especially based on what Sanjay Hegde has said, are you worried then that this action, because some could make these conspiratorial conclusions quite easily, makes the BJP look desperate to bring down a political opponent? I mean, I know you say this is about the law, but he is obviously a leader of the opposition. So like it or not, politics factor in here. Is this not risky for the BJP?
Casting aspersions on the quantum of punishment by a judge is something which is not acceptable in the Indian judicial system. Without a shred of mala fide evidence, even a shred of evidence of mala fide, I would like Mr. Sanjay Hegde to say this judgment is mala fide. I would like him to say this judgment was motivated. I have no issues. Let him say that. Talking about some people thinking, which people thinking, Mr. Hegde? People like you or Mr. Sanjay Jha, who have political affiliations, may do so, but do not have the courage to cast aspersion on the judge. Do it. Nobody has talked about the judgment itself in terms of holding him guilty. He has been held guilty under a law. Now, if he has been held guilty under a law, then so be it. On the quantum, West, look at anywhere, look at America. Does anybody question the quantum of punishment? Now to say merely it is coincidental,
I think it's often questioned.
These conjunctures cannot be entertained in the absence of any evidence of any kind of mala fide. It is the judicial wisdom of a man. I can't be. BJP or the government has nothing to do with the judicial wisdom of a magistrate who has exercised his own wisdom.
Okay, but Sudhanshu Mittal, I mean, this.
Can I finish? Can I finish?
Please,
No,
quickly.
I'm not finished because there are two facts which have been wrongly stated here. Mr. Sanjay Jha talked about the central government's OBC list. Mr. Sanjay Jha is not aware of the provisions. Every state has the provision of declaring people as OBCs, and Modis in Gujarat are OBCs. If he does not know it, too bad for him. Let him go and check up the law and then make a statement on an international channel like this. This kind of falsified narrative saddens me. As a nothing to do with it. It's a private member complaint tried by a magistrate whose jurisdiction it falls. He has found him guilty and he's given a quantum of punishment. And the act which disqualifies him.
As I said, I like to give everybody equal time. So, I mean, Sanjay Jha, I'll let you begin because those comments were directed at you. Go ahead in your response.
Well, I think once again, the gentleman is being extremely disingenuous. For example, Lalit Modi and Nirav Modi themselves are not OBC community. So what exactly are they talking about here? Yes, there is a Modi Gandhi community
in Gujarat.
I didn't interrupt you, sir. I didn't interrupt you. Let's maintain a civilized demeanor.
You're talking about Gujarat.
Okay,
talking about Gujarat.
Allow him to finish, please.
The truth of the matter is that at the moment, there are many questions being raised. Mr. Hegde has raised a few. The Congress party, by the way, has officially talked about the remarkable and extraordinary hurry in which the trial recommenced. Suddenly, the complainant withdrew his own stay, which he had done in a higher court. I mean, these are matters that raise eyebrows. And I think this is, by the way, a democracy. And we are not yet, at least formally, an authoritarian state or a totalitarian state. So to question even a judgment is within the fundamental rights of every citizen, Mr. Mittal. So the question here is this, that the Congress party is convinced that at the end of the day, legally, Rahul Gandhi will stand vindicated. I'm sure it will have a political fallout. Indians are watching, the world is watching. I'm glad you're doing a program on this because the larger, shall we say, narrative is that this government wants to silence the voices of the opposition, which are questioning this government on corruption, on basically on corporate and the government malfeasance in collusion. The government is being questioned in terms of the Prime Minister's decision to provide access to one very close industrialist who, by the way, in 3 years accumulated 85% of his wealth to become overnight the second richest man in the world. And this happened when this man was ranked 609 in 2014. I mean, the world hasn't seen, neither has America. Some of the richest countries in the world haven't seen such skyrocketing appreciation of an individual's wealth.
I mean, Sanjay Hegde, let me ask you about that because you also alluded to Gautam Adani. And of course, Rahul Gandhi had been pushing for investigations into financial fraud and if that could be connected somehow to the Prime Minister. I mean, how is that factoring in as far as a legal case is concerned?
As far as this legal case is concerned, Adani has no role in it. But there's that great saying in a James Bond film where you say that the first time it's happenstance, the second time it's coincidence, the third time it's definitely enemy action. So now let's add up. There were questions in Parliament. There was a speech in Parliament by Mr. Gandhi which got totally deleted from the Parliament's records. That speech pertained to Mr. Adani. At that same point of time, there was this case of defamation which was pending in the Gujarat court but had been stayed by the Gujarat High Court. The person who sought that stay went to the Gujarat High Court and said, please withdraw that stay. I am withdrawing my case in the Gujarat High Court. Let the trial commence. Then the trial goes on, and shortly thereafter, there is the maximum sentence, which is just enough to disqualify the man from parliament.
Okay, again,
Yes.
you're outlining exactly
There's
why
an
people could
entire
see.
legal pattern.
Yeah,
There is a pattern within the law, but the law was not really designed to be operated like that.
understood. Okay, Sudhanshu, I know you've been eager to get in. Go ahead.
Mr. Jha and Mr. Sanjay, for your information, the stay order was vacated after the withdrawal petition by the petitioner himself, much before the speech you are referring to. So please check your facts. When you cast aspersions in the garb of coincidences, at least have some facts which can at least total up to what you want to allege covertly. Now, I'll go further. The choices have been made by who? Mr. Gandhi himself. Whether he wants to face the trial of defamation and whether he wants to get punished for not for defamation, he has chosen it. Why is somebody else being blamed? Now, as far as Mr. Adani's case is concerned, and the thunderstorm which would have come if Mr. Gandhi would have spoken about it, let me just remind you all that the Supreme Court has already instituted a complete committee into this to look into all these aspects of any wrongdoing vis-a-vis any governmental institution or any system within the country
Okay.
vis-a-vis Mr. Adani's issues.
So the investigation, yeah, is underway.
Making an excuse of this kind
It's independent.
to hide your own criminal. Miss, I have not finished. You gave them enough chance. This is 2:1, so allow me to at least put forward my point of view.
Please
Now,
do hurry.
Mr. Adani, well, yeah. So your insinuations about the linkage of Adani, that I should also clarify that if he was 609, it was in your regime that he was 609. For 10 years, he's the one who blossomed in the 10 years of Congress government. He till today also blossoms in the 70,000 crore contract which is given by one of your chief ministers. So please do not insinuate all these things to divert the intention of your own failure. You know what happens is you have a leader.
We only
who
have
makes
3 minutes
irresponsible
left.
Statements, and you bear the consequences of that, but you want to blame somebody else for his irresponsible statements. I'm amazed.
Okay. You know what? I was going to ask another question, but Sanjay Jha, I'd seen you with your hand up and you wanted to reply, so please do quickly reply to what you heard, and I'd like to go on to another issue. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mittal was very uncomfortable because he sees this 2 against 1. But in a normal Indian television program, Andrea, let me tell you, is 5 against 1 in BJP's favor. So obviously, I can understand his discomfiture. He's not used to this experience. But the more important point is what the government did after Mr. Rahul Gandhi was convicted by the Sessions Court, by the Surat Court. Immediately, within 24 hours, they suspended him. When in fact, who suspended him? Whether it should have been through the president or through the chief election commissioner or the Lok Sabha speaker, nobody knows. A dramatic hurry to try and say we are following the process. Within 24 hours thereafter, they have asked him to vacate his house. If this is not political, kind of vengeance or retribution, I don't know what it is. But the more fundamental point, this is an authoritarian government. This is a government that has made India, in my opinion, into an illiberal democracy in the eyes of the world. Everyone is calling us today an elected autocracy. India's institutions are frankly so fragile, they are barely able to stand. India's investigating agencies are being used to terrorize businessmen, journalists, NGOs, civil society, and obviously political opponents.
Okay.
And largely, these are manifestations of an insecure prime minister and a very, very unsecure party. I have a strong feeling Indians are watching. And in 2024, Mr. Mittal's party will be in the opposition.
Sanjay Hegde, as a senior advocate at the Indian Supreme Court, is Sanjay Jha's description of India's institutions correct? Is it that bad?
Well, they have been hollowed out and peopled by hollow men. And I don't say this about the judiciary. The judiciary had to tell the government that, look, please, let's have a consortium of people who will decide who the election commissioners are. The people at the head of the investigating agencies, like the ED, the Supreme Court had to say that the person in charge will not be given further extensions. The government came up with a law to overturn the Supreme Court judgment. They have their favorites in place in crucial institutions. And as the Polish saying goes, a fish rots from the head.
Okay, but very quickly then, I mean, it doesn't sound good from what either of you are describing as far as the institutions, as you say, being hollowed out. But do you still think Rahul Gandhi can get a fair trial going forward for this case?
Well, I hope he does, and I believe he will.
Okay, that will have to be our final word for this edition of The Newsmakers. I'd like to thank sincerely all three of my panelists for joining us. A fascinating discussion, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it again in the very near future as Mr. Gandhi is set to appear in court on April 13th. So we'll be talking about this again. I'd like to thank to our viewers as well for watching. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.